Game time decisions for Ohio State's big game on Saturday against Indiana. Two teams playing for the Big Ten East lead, two teams undefeated, two teams both ranked in the top 10. These are the crucial things that they both have to have in mind for Saturday's game in order to come out of there with a victory. Steven, what's your game time decision?
Yeah, and it goes hand in hand with, I think, how they're going to end up winning this game. Ohio State had 11 quarters last year where they had at least 21 points, and that's basically where they were winning games. That quarter, they would start humming. They've had one this year, and it came against Rutgers, and it's why they were up 35-3 at halftime. I think this is one of those games where they're going to need one of those because I think Indiana will be able to keep some things close for a little bit, and Ohio State's going to need one of those quarters. That's how they often operate. The second quarter was their magic quarter last year, and they haven't necessarily had that this year. They haven't needed it either. So they're usually up by so much at halftime that they can just take their foot off the pedal a little bit. I'm interested to see if they keep that foot on the pedal and are able to put a quarter together where they score 3 or 4 times and it's a 21-point quarter or a 28-point quarter, and that's where they kind of put the game away, whether it's the first, second, or third or fourth quarter. Can they have that quarter where the offense just starts humming and the defense is also getting stops and they can put away a game?
So Indiana comes into this game ranked number 2 in the country, number 1 in the Big Ten in turnover margin. And I don't know that they can sustain that. I don't know that they can come in and turn Ohio State over in its own stadium more than they usually do. I think actually the big stat, though, for me is we've talked a lot about how Justin Fields has only thrown 11 incompletions all season. According to Pro Football Focus's data, Indiana has 11 drops this year from its receiving core. This is a group on offense that has to play its cleanest game of the year. I'm talking about Indiana. In order for them to come in and have a chance to pull an upset here, they've got to come in and execute at a level that they haven't before. So I think you're going to have that number of drops. I think maybe they could get away with one. I think you could maybe get one drop of a ball, a catchable ball that should otherwise be caught. I'm not talking about the borderline stuff. You can maybe get away with one. But I think if you give Ohio State any more than that, this is already going to be the toughest game Indiana's faced so far as having to sustain an offense, drive the length of the field. Like I said, I don't think they're going to be able to turn Ohio State over the way they have other teams because Ohio State just doesn't commit turnovers. So their offense is going to have to execute at a higher level, and that's going to mean the guys on the receiving end of the ball, because Ohio State's going to come after Michael Penix pretty hard. The guys who are receiving those passes are going to have their best game of the season. So I'm saying one drop maximum for the Hoosiers.
So Steven puts this post together, and then after the game, he immediately sort of says, how did the game time decisions go? So Steven, you're counting drops Saturday for the Indiana Hoosiers, because I think that's a really interesting point, Nathan, that you can't give chances away. I want to see how Ohio State plays its corners against Indiana. Indiana has 2 receivers in Whop Philyor and Ty Freifogel who can do some damage. And if I were Ohio State, I would line up Shaun Wade and Sevyn Banks right on top of them and say, you're not going anywhere. I know that they like to mix up coverages. I know they do different things. They are not a full press man team like they were several years ago, the last time Kerry Combs was here. But I think this is an opportunity to be really aggressive, not give them easy 8-yard or 10-yard or 12-yard outs. Michael Penix can make those throws. I don't think there's a reason to give anything easy to Michael Penix or these receivers. Make them beat you. And if they beat you deep and they do something really well, or they beat you on a slant and they go and you're trailing them on man coverage, then maybe adjust after that. But I would come out super aggressive in man coverage and put faith in Shaun Wade and Sevyn Banks. So I'm very curious. That's the decision to me. How do they come out? And does it change? And how much are they still just kind of mixing up coverages and it's a little bit of this, a little bit of that? Or do they sort of dare Michael Penix and these 2 receivers to beat them? Because I think they're good, but they're not Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson. And Shaun Wade and Sevyn Banks should be big time dudes. So I think this is a big game for Wade and Banks, but I'm curious how Kerry Combs will deploy them and how much he'll sort of allow them to sort of get after these Indiana receivers. So Steven, you got to be watching how much are they pressed up in man coverage on these dudes, especially in the first half.
I think that's an interesting way to look at this game because Ohio State, I think that second half of that Rutgers game did not sit well with them, and they've had now 2 full weeks to sit in that by the time they kick off on Saturday. I think this whole defense is probably going to be pretty motivated to come out and take a better step forward into the second half. Those are game time decisions. Come back to cleveland.com after the game for full coverage of this battle for the Big Ten East lead.